Hello and welcome to Chat UTD. So it seems that Rúben Amorim of Sporting Lisbon is set to become Manchester United's new manager. We're awaiting confirmation of that. I didn't want Ineos just to go for someone who was free and available. I wanted them to identify their man, because clearly Ten Hag wasn't their man. Be aggressive in their pursuit of him. If you have to pay compensation, pay compensation. Essentially headhunt and poach a manager who they believe is the best person to come in and take United forward, and don't write off a season. And in fairness, it looks like they're doing that. He's a sought after young manager. He's 39 years old. If we believe what we read, he turned down Liverpool in the summer. Hugo Viana, who was the director of football at Sporting Lisbon, has gone to Man City, and there's a strong suggestion that the reason for that, or one of the reasons for that, is that he then would be in place because they wanted to long-term replace Guardiola with Rúben Amorim, much like they got all the Barcelona guys in before they got Guardiola. So none of that's confirmed, but I mean, if you look at that, either indirectly or directly, he's turned down City and Liverpool, if we believe that. So there's 2 wins for his popularity rating straight away. I wonder why we didn't get him in the summer, because we don't know things about him now that we didn't know then. It's not a left field appointment. It's not someone we'd have to have done a ton of research on. But maybe, he turned Liverpool down in the summer, so maybe it wasn't the right time. I don't know. Maybe there's stuff going on that we don't know about with that, but it does just raise that question for me. I believe he plays 3-4-3, and I'd love him to come in and impose that straight away. Sir Jim in February mentioned that the football board would dictate how the team played, essentially, how they wanted a manager to get the team to play. They must have seen something in Amorim to make him their guy, and part of that would be the system he plays, the way he plays, the way he gets teams playing, and part of that is his formation of 3-4-3. So I hope he's given the autonomy and the authority to come in and impose that system onto the players, because I'm bored of watching 4-2-3-1. I don't remember the last time we didn't play that system. I don't think our style of play has changed that much since Mourinho got sacked 6 years ago, really. Ten Hag tried to do it a little bit in the first couple of games of his tenure at United. We got slapped 4-0 by Brentford, and he resorted back to playing the way that Ollie had played, but just did it better. In a video I did a few weeks ago, I think it was on a Friday night, it wasn't necessarily 3-4-3, but it's the only time I've ever used a tactics board, and what I showed you was 2 centre-backs and then a very, very, very deep lying a defensive midfield player with 2 players just in front of him. So there's a compact 5 essentially in the middle of the park, with the wing backs, if you like, or the wide players playing very, very high up. Not necessarily 3-4-3, but not dissimilar to the system that Amorim plays. So I'm really excited about that. I think there's a massive misconception about how long it can take to implement a playing style. If you see a good manager come into a club partway through a season, what often happens is they get a bounce. And the reason for that bounce is their tactics, their formation, their way of doing things is completely different to the last guy. And the players buy into it. It's a new voice. They're motivated, they're engaged, they're switched on. And you see that bounce. So far from it taking 2 or 3 years to implement this way of playing, I think it takes 2 or 3 weeks. The acid test, and the thing that Ten Hag couldn't do, is sustainable implementation of that. Keeping the players engaged, keeping them bought in, continuing to motivate them in your way of doing things, and imposing your will as much as you impose your style of play on that team. The great example is Unai Emery at Aston Villa. 2 years isn't a bounce. He came in 2 years ago in October, completely changed the way they played. Within weeks they were doing far better, and they've continued to do that, and it's just continued to grow. Now, do our players have the wherewithal to do that? I'm not sure. But that's where, as I say, he has to impose his way. He has to impose his will. Is he strong enough to do that? We'll find out. Player power exists at United. These players keep getting sacked. Managers sacked is not true, as I've mentioned many times recently, but player power does exist. He has to have the strength to challenge that, and Ineos have to be behind him on that as well. I want to see him try and put this style of playing straight away, and the players that come with him, great. The players that don't, not going to play. That he has to have the autonomy to do that. And he's got 6.5, 7 months to work that out and to do and to try and impose that style of play. It's perfect, really, I think. The League Cup tonight against Leicester, let's hope we get through. Then you're in the latter stages of that if we do. You've got to get through that Europa League. You know, that's more than doable, and the FA Cup's still to come. In the league, we're so far behind and in such a poor position, I don't think there's as much pressure in the league. As long as we see, I'll tell you what I want to see in these next 6.5, 7 months. I want to see a distinctive style of play. Something that is different and identifiable. Where we play attacking football, there's a very clear structure to it, the players are bought into it, they're hungry, they're playing for the badge, he brings in more young players, and it's attractive to watch if possible. That's what I want to see for the next 6.5, 7 months. And he can do that in real time, in real games. These aren't friendlies, like you normally get in pre-season when a manager comes in. These are proper games of football, and there will be bumps, and there will be setbacks, and there will be teething problems. And I think we would all forgive all that as long as we know it's heading towards something. And under Ten Hag, it felt like we were heading nowhere. So I think it's really exciting. I want to enjoy watching my football team again. I want to see players who want to play for that badge. And a manager has to be able to motivate the players to do that, and has to be a strong enough, dynamic enough voice to keep their levels of engagement. And these players, a lot of them are Ten Hag players. Some of them, the jury's still out on them, but I'll be interested to see how they do under a new manager. And as I say, he has to impose his will on this team. It's not just your style of football, it's his personality. He has to be able to do that. And what I'm talking about here are standards, not necessarily expectations. Expectations for me is you're going to finish third, or you're going to win the league, or you're going to win a cup. But that's an expectation. For me, these things I'm referring to as standards. And if we uphold those standards to the best of our ability, we might have some limited players. But if I know the difference between when players are trying to uphold standards and when they're not, and we haven't been. If we start to try and uphold those standards, and they buy into this manager, and he can get them to try and play that very distinctive way that I'm talking about, which will be different and refreshing and interesting to watch, then great. But he has to impose his will as well as his style of play. I don't profess to know an awful lot about Rúben Amorim. One of my concerns, and it might be an ignorant concern, is that for me there's echoes of when Ten Hag was appointed as United's manager, and it's hard now with what we might think of Ten Hag now, 2 and a bit years down the line, to think of this perspective. But it's true that when he was linked to United, there was a lot of excitement, and he was a sought-after manager who was doing very well with a big club in a small league. You could say there's echoes of that. There are differences as well, though. Ajax are by far the biggest club in Holland, with the biggest budget, the biggest resources, and the biggest fan base. Sporting Lisbon, of Sporting, Benfica and Porto, particularly when Rúben Amorim joined them, are probably the underdogs of those three. And I would also say Amorim's a lot younger, he's 39, and you tend to find that Portuguese managers, Portuguese players come into the Premier League and do really, really well. Dutch players and Dutch managers have a mixed bag in the Premier League. That's historically stereotypical, I know, but so there's differences, but there's also some similarities as well. What I'll not be doing is hero worshipping the guy before he's sat in the dugout. I will be reserving judgment and hoping he does really well. I think United fans sometimes get things the wrong way round. As soon as someone is confirmed to be part of our club, whether it be a player, a manager, Ineos, there's this absolute loving for them, and this assumption that they deserve our absolute unconditional love. and hero worship from minute one because they now belong to Manchester United. That's not the way I see it. When anyone comes into our club, be it a player, a manager, or partial new owners, they need to prove themselves to us with our support. I'll be supportive of Rúben Amorim. I want him to do really well. I desperately want to enjoy watching my football team again because I haven't enjoyed it for a long, long time. So I'll support him to the hilt. But I'm going to reserve judgment on him as well until I see that one way or another it's going to work or it's not. And obviously I hope it works. But prepare yourself for the big press conference, prepare yourself for the big releases, for the video compilations. They'll probably dig out a video of him or a photo of him wearing a United shirt when he was younger. He's proved and done nothing at Manchester United. He's a new manager who deserves our support, who needs to prove himself to be capable of doing the job that he's been brought in to do, should it be confirmed. And it is still to be confirmed. A bit concerned yesterday when I heard him say the clubs have agreed it, but it's his decision. It was made to sound earlier in the evening that it was a done deal. So I think it's probably him just being careful and being respectful, but I hope it's confirmed at some point very soon. It's getting to the stage now where they said about him potentially being in charge for the Chelsea game. It's getting to the stage now where that might be a little bit late for that. There's no rush. I want things done yesterday, but in terms of for the sake of one more game, I would have him in where he can properly do some work on the training ground and stuff like that. Sunday's a free hit really against Chelsea, whether he's in charge or he's not. Maybe he'll just be in the stands or something like that. But I just want it to be confirmed so we know it's definitely happening. On a lighter note, if you get the chance, Google or YouTube him speaking in English. He sounds exactly the same as Cristiano Ronaldo. It is absolutely frightening how much he sounds like him. So maybe and hopefully that would be a good omen. And hopefully it's confirmed at some point soon. Up the Amorim Reds. Oh, that sounds. Glazers out.